All right, let's go back in time. We're heading into the trenches of the 1990s tech scene to tell the story of a real database warrior, a system that didn't just decide to compete, it went straight up against the biggest giant in the room, Oracle. Yeah, this is the story of Informix. And a war is exactly what this was. I mean, this wasn't just about who had the biggest marketing budget or the fanciest features. At its very core, this was a battle for pure, raw, unadulterated speed, a fight for performance that would end up shaping the technology so much of our world runs on today. So to really get what made Informix so special, you first have to understand the battlefield. The 1990s, this was an absolutely brutal competitive era that we now call the database wars. This is where the giants clashed and the challengers had to fight for every single inch of ground. Now, the whole landscape was pretty much dominated by a few key players. First, you had the giant, Oracle, the undisputed market leader. Then you had Sybase, the specialist that basically owned the high-stakes world of Wall Street. And then you had Informix. It was born back in the 80s, but really hit its stride in the 90s, carving out its own territory as the performance-obsessed challenger. And this set up a really fascinating kind of lopsided conflict. See, Oracle's strategy was all about market dominance, be everywhere for everyone. Informix had a much sharper focus. Just be faster, be technically superior, win on pure, raw speed. That was their entire game plan. So you're probably asking, how on earth could a smaller company even hope to compete on performance? Well, they had a secret weapon. An architectural innovation that went way beyond what standard relational databases were doing at the time. And at the heart of it was this idea of an object-relational database. You can think of it as the best of both worlds. You get the reliable, structured query language, SQL, that everybody knew and loved, but you could combine it with this incredible flexibility to handle new, complex kinds of data that just didn't fit into neat little rows and columns. And this brilliant idea was brought to life by something they called the data blade architecture. Honestly, this was the total game changer. This was the piece of tech that truly set Informix apart from everybody else. So how did it work? It was just beautifully modular. So you'd start with this solid, super high-performance core engine. Then, if you needed to handle, say, geographic map data, you just plug in the geospatial data blade. Simple. Need to analyze data over time? No problem, plug in the time series data blade. This meant developers could literally extend the database for super specific needs without ever messing with the stability of the core. It was just incredibly clever. And look, this innovation wasn't just some theory on a whiteboard. Oh no, it translated directly into real-world dominance, especially in the high-speed, high-stakes world of online transaction processing, or OLTP. Under the hood, this was all running on what Informix called its Dynamic Scalable Architecture, or DSA. You can think of this as the engine's secret sauce, a design that was hyper-optimized for managing memory, for disk I/O, and for handling thousands of people hitting the system at the exact same time without even breaking a sweat. And the result of all that engineering? Thousands. We are talking about thousands of transactions flying through the system every single second. This wasn't just fast for the 90s. This was a level of performance that could power the most demanding industries on the entire planet. And this is where it really mattered. We're talking about the systems that absolutely could not fail. Banking systems processing your ATM withdrawals, telecom switches routing millions of calls, retail stores managing every single sale and piece of inventory, and logistics companies tracking packages in real time. All of these, they relied on the speed and the rock-solid reliability that Informix delivered. And that reliability was backed up by some seriously impressive enterprise-grade tech. It had features like row-level locking, which meant tons of users could update data at the same time without tripping over each other. It also used something called MVCC, which is a fancy way of saying that people reading data wouldn't get blocked by people writing data. That's a huge deal for performance. This thing was an absolute beast, built to handle extreme pressure. So whatever happened to this database warrior? Well, while it was eventually acquired, its influence is still felt today. This isn't just a story about some old piece of legacy code. This is the stuff of database legend. I absolutely love this quote because it just captures the whole vibe of Informix perfectly. It took the standard, reliable foundation of a relational database and completely supercharged it. It added power, it added speed, and it had this kind of elegant flexibility that developers went crazy for. So when you boil it all down, Informix's impact is just undeniable. It pushed the entire industry forward by pioneering that object-relational model. It completely raised the bar for what high-speed transaction processing could be. And maybe most importantly, it proved that a smart, performance-obsessed challenger could step into the ring with a giant and land some very, very serious punches. Which really leaves us with a question for today's tech world, which is just as competitive as the 90s ever were. What can the massive tech titans of our time learn from this story, from this warrior that bet everything on technical excellence, on real innovation, and on pure, unadulterated performance? It's definitely something to think about.